Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Hypersegmentation, the topic du jour. And I am super stoked about this webinar, guys. I'm really grateful that you took the time to join us. Yes, we can see your screen.
Sweet. Okay, so this is me. I climb mountains because I like to do difficult stuff. And sometimes it's dangerous, but I like to have lots of methodologies and safety stuff to go make it less dangerous and make it just fun so that you can go to cool places, but because you have all these processes, you're making life easier and reducing your risk. So in Infusionsoft, there's all these things we can do to reduce risk, testing things out, all this. And I developed this methodology that I started calling hypersegmentation to go help us reduce risk and make sure we're going to be making more money. So the name of the game is behavioral segmentation. And we're going to start off reviewing the concepts of the 80-20 rule. And then we're going to give some brief examples of that. And we're going to go dig into how to go way beyond what you've ever thought you could do with Infusionsoft, unless you're in one of the previous talks that I've done on this. We're going to follow the Redbeard University methodology. Guess where the beard came from? Where we're going to review the basic concept of the 80-20 rule. Then we're going to build out a bunch of specific things using this hypersegmentation part of 80-20. And then we're going to go give you a bunch of use cases to say, okay, do these things and really just do one of these things. And you're going to have a more perspective on your business or your clients' businesses. So let's get rocking. I don't know how much money you're going to make from this talk. That largely depends on how much do you choose one of the strategies you're going to learn about and then go actually deploy it and tweak it. I know, Greg, that you did something in the room at the time I did this presentation in late March. Are you seeing results from that already?
Yeah, I am, man. And I'll share some of that at the end of this webinar. But I'll be honest, and I think I said this in one of the emails. Your session at SuccessCon was literally the only session that compelled me to pull out my laptop and start building something. And so don't be surprised if you end up with some ideas. Just get out a piece of paper or take some notes, and we'd love to know if and when you launch something. Tell us how it goes.
Yeah, what I'm going to ask you all at the end, spoiler alert, is to choose one thing that you learned today that you're actually going to do and chat it in, so we can get a sort of a survey of all the concepts that we shared about, which are really the most actionable for this particular audience. And then you'll also get to hear about what your fellow webinar attendees are going to be going and doing. So first off, you have permission to go tell me to slow down because I get vastly too excited about Infusionsoft. And if you want a concept gone over again, just go put that in the chat box and say, dude, what was that? Or I didn't get that. Or you're talking too fast. You're way too excited about technology. Totally legit. Say, hey, dude, slow down or go explain that thing. We also have different levels of experience here. So if I'm aiming too high and going over some concept too fast, the whole reason I'm here is for you to go learn something cool. And actually go use it. So go put a note in the chat box saying, I don't get X. And then between Brandon and Greg, we'll figure out how to go get you that, whether it's me going over it again or whatever it's going to be. So let's hop in. And yes, you were warned about the memes. So basic 80-20 rule is that we have some people who do stuff and some people matter way more than others. And we obviously apply this to things like, did they buy, did they click, or did they confirm? What you're probably already doing is that if someone clicks an email during a sales process, they get a different set of emails than if they never click an email at all. Or if someone's confirmed their email address, they get a different sales sequence than someone who has never confirmed their email address. This is all extremely basic stuff in Infusionsoft. All I've done is combined this with a couple of other things, which is things like the specific hour of the specific day they did a thing. And then I've combined that with some other stuff. So real quick, how many know, and I can't see the chat box, so Greg, you'll have to tell me, how many people know how to do this right now, the specific hour of the specific day? If I ask you Tuesday, 8 to 9 a.m. your time, what percentage of those people who click on your email buy as compared to people who click Saturday from 4 to 5 p.m. your time? In terms of percentage of buying, what's your conversion rates based on the hour of the week?
Okay, so first of all, Brian, we need to work on the way that you ask questions so that they're a little easier to answer. So type one, Type 1 if you know what you would do to find that, right? Type 1, yes, I know how I would find that. Or type 2 if you're thinking, I have no idea how I would find what hour of what specific day they clicked on. So 1 means, smart. Yeah, I know how to do that. And 2 means, yeah, I'm not real sure how I would handle that. Okay, so we've got a few people saying no, most people saying no, one person saying, yeah, I think I could do that. Mark saying hello to Brandon and giving him some words of affirmation. Kind of you, Mark. Robin calling in. Oh, she saw it in San Diego. Cool. She's back for round 2. Okay, so
nice.
Yeah, although she still says 2, so maybe that means we got some work to do here.
Yeah, it's there's I think that everyone, including me, is overwhelmed by this idea that you're looking at here, to the point that we don't actually implement it all that we could. So now that we have a cute baby meme, let's go on to some specific use cases before we get into the details of how to build it, just so you can see a bit more about why this would be a good idea.
Perfect.
So what's easy to do is to say, if you know 20 people out of 100 total on your list are more likely to buy, then you could go call those people, in terms of, instead of just randomly calling 20 people on your list and hoping it's the 20 people most likely to buy.
Right.
To make it a bit more complicated, if we can base that on the dwell time from the opt-in to the click, that might be better off. And that's saying, for when you sent people a sales email, how long did it take them to click on the sales email? If I send out the email and 5 minutes later, I have 5 meetings in my calendar, I should probably talk to those people more. And I should probably not worry about the people who take 2 days to click. It just, those two groups in comparison. If we can combine the dwell time with all the other stuff we're already gathering, then maybe we can use our time we're spending on the phone more productive, and thus have the more money, the more time with our families, all the stuff. Greg can go to the beach because he's somewhere where there's actually beaches. And so you can measure all this stuff natively in Infusionsoft. And that's what you're going to see here. I'm also going to show you the plus this version, because plus this makes it way easier, but you're going to get the basic concept in Infusionsoft, so you can do it natively before you go over to the plus this stuff. So here's another basic use case. Offering discount to people who aren't going to buy anyways. Now, right now you might say, well, if someone doesn't click a single sales email in a 5 sales email cycle, they're probably less likely to buy. What you could add on to this is that if you knew when those people tended to do stuff, like let's say people who opt in on weekends never ever buy. People who opt in on weekdays, that's where all your buyers are. If you wanted to test out a discount to see what happens, don't show it to everybody, which would hurt your price among the people who are already going to buy, but just show it to the weekend people. They don't buy anyways. So here's the big thing. We can segment based on people when exactly they click, not just if they're clicking. So here's the warning, which is this is really exciting stuff. And it's really important to go make sure you're having something you're actually selling, a solid funnel with cart abandonment and some good analytics and all this stuff, because what we're showing here is not what you should do in your first month of using Infusionsoft. I have not fully implemented any of this since I talked about it in late March down in San Diego, because I'm busy doing other more basic funnel building kind of stuff. So I rely on people like Greg to actually do it and tell me how it goes. So let's talk about moving from the real simple 80-20 principle stuff to the more complicated stuff. There's 2 things we're talking about. We're talking about time of day and day of week and that kind of thing, the when somebody does something. And then we're talking about dwell time, which is the distance between. Let's get into the details of how we're measuring these things. And again, I can't see the chat where I'm, but you're welcome to go and chat in and tell me what's going on. Hey, I actually can see the chat now. That's cool beans.
Just, Brian, while I've got a pause here, we've had about another 10 people join since we did the initial introduction. So, hey, welcome to those folks. We are really just laying the groundwork here as far as setting up use cases for where this will come into play. We haven't yet dove into how it works. This is just when you might use scenarios like this.
Yeah, absolutely. We want you to believe that this is actually worth thinking about, because your brain's about to get melted, and I want you to recover from that with grace. So this right here, another question for everybody, learning from Greg, type either 1 or 2 into the chat box. If you know how long it takes somebody from the moment they click your sales email until they actually make a purchase, if you know the average of that for your primary funnel, type in 1. If you don't know that, type in number 2. And this is just offhand in your brain right now.
Most people are everybody's putting 2 pretty much across the board.
When I asked this in the room at SuccessCon, everybody also said 2, except for Craig Jacobson, who's doing some stuff like this. But basically, no one knows this. But when we think about it, isn't this really important? That imagine you're standing in a grocery store, how long you just walk around without buying something? Well, you're way less likely to buy it if you don't walk in there and buy it then leave, right? And yet we don't know this. I don't track it sufficiently. I sort of have an idea in my head, maybe, and I track it a little bit sometimes, but not consistently. And I don't know the number offhand. So we should know this. And by the end of this webinar, you will know exactly how to find this out in native Infusionsoft for your flagship product. So we're about to get techie, and you're always welcome to put in the chat box too techie or go over that again or whatever else. Here are 8 different wins that Infusionsoft can track. And they are exactly what they sound like. Hour of days like 2 to 3 a.m. Week of month is like the second week of the month, etc. We're going to go into some more detail later. For dwell time, those are the time frames I care about. You could measure months or years if they really matter, but I find that if you just do weeks, you can get probably most of the way to where you're going. We don't need that level of complication. Now, when we talk about dwell time, we're talking about inviting somebody to do something and then them actually doing the thing. So if I invite you to confirm your email address and then a day later, 2 days later, you actually click the link to confirm, that's our dwell time because I made the invitation, then you went and did the thing. Same thing for clicks, completions, purchases. You could do this on opens, but be careful because open rate tracking is not perfect. And it would suck to go do analytic stuff based on imperfect information and go to all the work and have bad results. So I would just stick with the confirmation clicks, form completions, or landing page completions and purchases. If dwell time events, if why you would use those 4 things makes sense, type 1 in the chat box. If you're lost, type in 2.
Yeah, so I think that anytime, I mean, we're talking about segmentation, which is like at the core of most marketing, right? But when it gets a little bit more complex, you're layering in the behavioral element where it's not just like, are you male or are you female, but how they're interacting with you. And then when you extrapolate out to multiple events, that's where dwell time comes in. So we've got people, most people are saying 1. Brandon has added 1.2 just as a curveball there. But yeah, everybody's saying that they're clear on why this would be valuable and that
awesome.
they understand.
So let's keep on going. So let's presume you've now captured all this data. We have to go use it. Now we're going to show you after giving you a use case that will make you go, okay, I got it, the details of how to go build it. But first off, what are we going to do? We got to measure it somehow. We got to use it, or it's just sitting there in Infusionsoft. And raise both hands if you have data in Infusionsoft that you are not using. Let's all raise our hands.
That's pretty much everybody I know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm horrible, and all my clients. There's so much data just sitting there. So don't let it sit there. Here's one way to measure. It's in Campaign Builder. It's just a reporting function, super simple. And this just says, okay, if someone takes an action that I invited them to take, did they get the trigger on a weekday or a weekend? Which is something like when I sent you the sales email that you clicked on and bought the thing, did I send it to you on a weekend or a weekday? And this just tells you something very simple about them. You can also look at saved searches in Infusionsoft, which might look like this. It says, well, when did somebody, in this case, initially opt into your list? Now, if you saw this kind of data and it said that you had 1 buyer in the last 7 days who was originally opting in on the weekend, and you had 10 buyers and they originally opted in during a weekday, what does this tell you about who your valuable customers are? Or to put it more specifically, where should you spend your ad money? On the people who opted in on the weekday, or on people who opt in on the weekend? Assuming these are all the same value of purchase, where should you spend your ad money? And that's a question to chat in there, because it's pretty important to get the basic concept before we go and go beyond the one, the only A or B kind of choice.
I feel like that's a bit of a softball, but people are taking the bait. We got,
it is. I appreciate people taking the bait. That's sweet.
Yeah, they're both saying weekday.
Okay, sweet. So yeah, pretty simple. There could be extenuating circumstances, but in general, if one kind of person buys from you, another person doesn't, don't put energy towards the person who doesn't. Third way to look at it is spreadsheets. There's a tag applications report. You can go export things into Google Sheets or Excel or whatever. There's apps like Plus This that do it automatically. MyFusion Helper, Zapier can do stuff. But just basically put it in a spreadsheet, which can get handy when you're doing much bigger things. So now you've been convinced this is cool. Let's go look at the details. So, by the way, screenshots. So, put your drink down or pick it up depending on who has happy hour. So let's look at the day. Here's in a campaign. We're going to have something at the beginning, and we have their action. So let's say they confirmed their email address. Now I want to track just the day they confirmed, which I'm doing in the sequence. In that sequence, I'm going to go apply a bunch of tags whenever they confirm their email, and it's going to fulfill that goal on the right. Let's look in the sequence. We have 7 tracks. So people enter into all 7 tracks all at the same time. And then of these 7, 6 of them will stop the person and hold them until that day. But it's at least one day of the week every day. And so that one goes immediately through and applies that tag, which might say confirmed on Thursday. All 7 of those tags apply or fulfill this day sequence in goals on the right. So this way I can apply a tag that says a person did a thing on this particular day. If that makes sense, type in 1. If you're lost, type in 2.
So the example you're sharing here is specific to like, hey, they confirm their email. When they confirm their email, they get that first tag, and then they're going to go into that middle sequence where they get 1 of those 7 tags. And as soon as any of those tags are applied, they're pulled out so that they only get 1. Yep. But the key distinction is if we zoom out on this, that first action is interchangeable. It doesn't have to be email confirmed.
Right.
Whatever you want to track, that could be your purchase, that could be your opt-in, that could be your download, your scheduling, right? And then as soon as they get one of those tags, you know what day of the week that event took place on.
And I'll give you some examples of specific tags you might want to have. The ones you'll see them, you'll go, oh, part of the feedback I got at SuccessCon was once you see how this works, you can't unsee it. Your brain will be changed about the details here. So let's go to the next one. This is a weekday versus weekend. Now, the screenshots I'm showing you now all belong inside this sequence. Okay, you're always having a start tag, which is whatever thing they did. And then the tag goal at the right is always going to be fulfilled by all the tags you see in these screenshots, okay? So here is weekday versus weekend. Here is section of day. So to people who do a thing in the morning versus people who do a thing in the afternoon. In this case, 4-hour chunks, you might have 6 of these telling you what time of day they did a thing. Here we have hour of the day. You can see these are all identical, really. Here we have minute, or the quarter of the hour, where the tags from 9:15 to 9:30 is the same as the tag from 8:15 to 8:30. If you actually use this one, please tell me about it. I think this is just me showing off. But it's really cool that you could do it. And you could discover, do people tend to buy more often on the hour? Or if they opt in on the hour to 15 minutes after the hour, does that person take action differently than someone who takes an action toward right before the hour? And Infusionsoft does all this natively. Here is going to be the first Sunday, Monday. So this is measuring which week of the month. If your sales cycle has to do with the time of the month, this might be interesting. Here we have the month of the year. And here we have the month/year together. So we'd say this might output January of 2015 or February of 2015. We could even do whole years this way and measure which year did someone do something. And then you combine these together and you wind up with like this. You could conceivably, if you were doing all these things for somebody on the 4th of March, 2018, you could have all 8 of these tags describing all 8 aspects of what they bought. I'm not suggesting you do all this. Probably a couple of these are relevant to you. Maybe it's the month. Maybe it's knowing what time of day or really the day of the week that your buyers tend to do stuff, or people who confirm emails or do whatever other action you want.
We've got a good example from Brett here. He said he uses this logic to send different replies when they get website lead inquiries. So they can either say if it's a weekend or if it's overnight, hey, I'm out of the office right now, I'll get back to you soon. And then the other one is like, hey, I'll call you immediately if it happens to be during the week.
It's great. Brilliant. So now we know when our contacts took action, like Brett. And Rob says, why can't Infusionsoft do this natively in this rocks? So it can, because I'm showing you this. Now, I guess different definitions of natively. All this is inside the app. I'm not talking about extra plugins yet. So everything you're seeing right here, you can do no additional money. You just got to go set it up. So now let's look at how long it takes people to do stuff. And so here's another question. I think I already asked you, what do we know about our dwell time? The answer was no one knows what their dwell time is for their buyers, which is sad. We have the tools, we're just not using them. So let's fix that. Definitions, dwell time, the time between a trigger and an action. Here's the kind of time frames we're going to use. So you might say that my average dwell time from when someone enters into the first email, they get the first email for my sales campaign until they buy is 2.5 days, or 4 hours if you're awesome, or 15 minutes if you're really awesome. Something like that. And you measure it for individuals so that you could say these 20% of people buy the fastest. But then you'd also know your overall. And if you knew your overall, then you can measure that over time. Some ground rules here. Your guys' comments are hilarious. I'm glad you like the memes. So we want only one dwell tag at a time. And there's different ways to track dwell time, but in general, I like tags like this. So subscribe within 15 minutes, within 1 to 2 hours, that kind of thing. And the version I built for this model is relatively simple. There's some more sophisticated Infusionsoft ways to do it. We got into that a little bit at SuccessCon, but this will get you the basics and it'll get you most of the way there. And then if you want to be a hypersegmentation master, you could build it out more complicated. I like to use tags for everything, absolutely everything. So both for the trigger and for the action. So the triggers are the same things you used for win, for the tracking the win. And then the tags we're going to use for the actions are just them doing a thing, whether it's any kind of purchase, subscribing to something, really anything you can imagine. Here's what a simple version looks like. Oh my God, you guys in the comments are, I'm not going to look, it's too distracting. Okay,
right,
what you're seeing.
Focus.
If you saw my video, I'm blocking out with my hand the hilarity over there because you guys are hilarious. So what you're looking at right here, this is a sequence and it gets started by a trigger. Like I invite you to confirm your email address. And then I'm going to remove that trigger right away that says start the email confirmation dwell time campaign. I'm going to apply a tag that says you confirmed within 15 minutes. But then 15 minutes later, if I'm still in the sequence, I'm going to go remove that because you haven't actually done the thing within 15 minutes. So let me clarify that. Right before this sequence is I invited you to do a thing, goal, tag activated goal. Right after the sequence is you did the thing, tag activated goal. So it might be start email confirmation campaign starts this, and then you confirmed your email. That tag ends this. So what you're
in other words, they can only have one of these tags at a time.
There can be only one, Greg. And
if that's the next meme, I'm going to be so pumped.
I can add it real quick. Let me go over here. This right here, guys, this is the whole thing for 2 weeks where you see I'm using out minutes, then hours, and I'm applying and taking away tags so that this gets me a whole week of when did this person do a thing. Now, if I add 10,000 people to it, then they'll all have that within 15 minutes tag. So it's not going to be accurate while the campaign is running, but once it's over for my analysis, I'll have excellent details. There are ways to go do this natively, I think. I haven't developed them yet, but where you can make it so it only applied that tag and you use, well, it's more complicated. We don't actually need to make this more complicated. This version is simple, relatively speaking, understandable. And that's how we're going to track dwell time for an action and then for how long. Before I go on to the next thing, when you're looking at this, if you're with me on the general concept, not necessarily if you could build this out yourself right now, but if you're with me on the general concept, type into 1. If you're just sort of like, what the sad bear, type in 2. That's now a phrase.
Which by the way, I believe was a sun bear. But
a sun bear?
There seems to be a level of dispute here. The one thing that the chat can agree on is that a koala is shamelessly masquerading as a bear, although it is clearly a marsupial.
Wow.
Okay, we've got
I'm really glad I didn't read the comments because then I would have gotten even more distracted than I already am.
Okay, we got most people who are agreeing that they get the concept. Just want to rehash it for ISIS real quick. The tags, right, are being removed and applied and then removed and applied. And so really what we're tracking here is in 15-minute increments, did they do something in the first 15 minutes or the second 15 minutes or the 30 to 45 minutes? And the way that we do that is by removing and applying these tags, knowing that this whole process will stop once they do the next action.
So I may not have made that clear. This tag and this tag are the same thing. On either side of the delay timer, it's always the same tag. So we're tossing it on there and then stripping it off and putting the next one on. So a human who comes through here, they have you did the thing in 15 minutes. You subscribed within 15 minutes of being invited to, until 15 minutes elapses and they didn't actually do the thing that comes after this sequence, which is the tag applied goal that says confirm your email address. And so they'll only have one tag at a time. And then at the very end, they'll get a type that says didn't confirm within 1 week.
Bingo. Yep. We're good.
Okay. So let's talk about where you get. You can then have tags like these where you did a thing and you did it within a certain time period for whatever the action is. And then you can go and take the win and the dwell and put them together. You can do this in your spreadsheet. You can do safe searches. You can look at purchase behavior. But now you can look at not just what did they do, they bought your thing, but they did it within 2 to 4 hours of being invited to do so, and they did it between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. Now our segmentation can get crazy. We're going to go measure it in the same kind of ways as before. And I should have put a screenshot in there, which I didn't do for this one. We can imagine showing it all in Campaign Builder, or just doing a lot of different safe searches to tell us what is the intersection of, and the simple one is they bought within an hour or over an hour, and they bought on the weekend or a weekday. You can measure these two things and then say, okay, well, I have 4 buckets of people. And of those 4 buckets of people who buy a thing, who has the greatest value over the course of the first year? Is it a weekend or a weekday buyer? Is it a person who bought within an hour, or a person who bought over an hour from when they got the email to go make the purchase? With just these 4 buckets, it should tell us something about their overall lifetime value, or first year value. And then I can go spend my ad money appropriately and my energy appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it boils down to, right? Is this information in a vacuum may not be all that important, but when you're able to use it, in conjunction with one another, you can trace it back to inform how you want to find more of the people who are the best use of your time, or who have the highest customer lifetime value, right? Or who are as responsive as possible.
How many people have hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of what appear to be dead leads? Who are saying, is that person a real person? Is that email address still real? I don't know. This can help you, in conjunction with the email status report, understand who your most likely buyers are. So let's go utilize this thing. How are we doing on time, Greg? We feeling pretty good?
Yeah, we're doing all right. I think I have an appetite to pick up the pace, but I think you're probably doing just fine.
I can talk faster. Just ask any of my clients to tell me to talk slower. So let's go use these things together. We need to know what we're going to compare it to. Like in my case I just gave, if we're measuring their first purchase, let's say, we got to measure it to something else and say, okay, well, we're going to measure their first purchase and we're going to measure it to their total lifetime value in their first year. Or we're going to compare it to their second purchase or something else. Greg, what are some things to compare this to that you're finding with the thing you set up that you're finding useful?
You want me to spoil it right now?
Oh crap! No, I don't. No, don't spoil it. We got another meme. That's what's really important here is the cat memes. If you agree that cat memes are the most important thing in this call, type in 1. If you also agree that the most important thing, type in a 2. Yeah, that's how I run the voting system, which is why I'm not in politics. Okay, so I'm going to give you some use cases, and these are going to spur your brain a little bit. Please keep in mind, I just want you to come away with one thing you're actually going to try. So if this seems exciting, but it's not that useful, don't do it. Just choose one thing that you see today. So first off, I want to know what day purchasers tend to opt in. That's a win, right? So which day of the week, and how long it takes them to click on the opt-in thank you email. So specifically, I'm offering a lead magnet of some kind, and I'm inviting people to go get the lead magnet. And I want to know, I want to measure both when did they do the opt-in, and then from when I send you the email saying, hey there, do you want a PDF on the Hypersegmentation Quick Start Guide? Do you click within 5 minutes because you're rabid, or do you click 3 days later, or not at all? And all right, I can combine these two.
Yeah, Brian, I want to zoom out. So you said something important there. When, right, is a specific action. So they opted in. That's the win. Was it what day of the week, morning, afternoon, night, what day of the month, etc. What week of the month, etc. And then the distance between two things. So when they opt in, that's the second thing. That's their dwell. And so those are really the two variables here. Everything else is just details. We've got when, which is when an occasion, when an action takes place, and dwell is the distance of time between those two items. Perfect.
So if I knew these two things, then, and I specifically say purchasers tend to opt in. So I'm looking at when they opt in what's written down here, and then when they make their first purchase, I could then target ads to other people who have similar characteristics, even if they've not bought yet. If half my buyers opt in on a Tuesday and they take less than an hour to download my lead magnet, then I could look at everybody else who shares a similar behavior and pump ads towards them. Now we need to test it to make sure that's actually smart, but at least gives me a direction to test in. Here's another use case. What section of the day buyers click the first sales email and how long it takes them to buy? This might differentiate between, whoa, morning people, man, they really click those emails really fast, but they never buy. Whereas those evening people, maybe they take longer to click, but then they're the people who really end up buying. Or maybe it's some combination of those. Right now, you probably don't know in your sales cycle exactly when, and you probably have a general sense, but you probably don't know exactly what the proportions are of your buyers to. Are they morning buyers or evening buyers in which day of the week? And even if you know that, you probably don't know per person. So you can't target each person individually like that. Let's do a third use case. When did someone opt in? And then how long does it take them to confirm their email address? This is a real use case from one of my clients in the tax analysis industry, where if you're in the US, tax day is in April. And so around March and April and February, a lot of people start looking for tax-related topics on Google. A lot of those people fill in our opt-ins, even though they really are not targeted to those people. So leads that come in really March and April are mostly not very good leads. So if I measure which month they opted in and then how long it took them to confirm, I can segment out our actual prospects from the people who just happen to show up. So here's the next note. Because you know all this stuff now, let's assume you're tracking everything we've talked about, there's a temptation to say, you know so much about people. We just got to keep in mind, we're dealing with human beings here with their own stories, their own lives, their own reason they're up in the middle of the night. And just keep that humility, even though we can segment so much about them and go really work on this data and really know so much about people. Just keep in mind, they're people, they're not just data. More dog memes. Now, what kind of dog is this? Because I know that's what you guys really care about. Mark has an actual on-topic question. Mark, you're amazing. How do we handle buyers over a range of time zones? Maybe they all buy at 8 a.m., but to us, it's a variety of times. If you know what time zone they're in, you can set your delay timers to be in the contact's time zone. So, mic drop. It's you can actually go do that. So it's pretty easy. Rob says a cute one. That's the or alarmed dog is the breed that I would call this. So go test stuff out first and make sure it actually makes sense. If you got some data and then you tested and spent a bunch of money and then the data was crap because what you thought you knew was not actually true, that would be sad. So like this little tiny cute lamb, let's go through a couple of things you could actually go do. But before that, I want to give you a case study of something I did for a client to go test out how well all this worked. The question at hand is, how long did it take contacts to confirm their email addresses? So my invitation is confirm your email address. I have a campaign, it ran for a while, and it gave them a couple chances to go confirm their email address. So the question is, because we're doing the whole 2080 thing, what time period did it take for 20% plus of the people to confirm their email address? I'm looking for answers like 0 to 15 minutes, or 1 to 2 hours, or 1 day to 2 days, or things like that. And it's a question to you. Now, at SuccessCon, I actually gave out a $20 bill to Anil, who correctly guessed the answer. But for now, let's chat in your answer. And
I'll mail a Monkey Pod T-shirt to whoever gets it.
There. And I got to tell you, so these shirts are amazing. So I put mine on today because, doing a Monkey Pod webinar, hadn't worn it yet because I hadn't gotten around to even opening the package. And my girlfriend says, wow, you smell really good. And I thought, does Greg mist these shirts with eucalyptus oil or something before he sends them? Because of all the people I know, the people most likely to mist a shirt with a mild essential oil blend is Mr. Greg Jenkins.
I think that the Monkey Pod logo just has that effect on people. It's not really
okay.
Okay, but
Fair
hey,
enough.
so we need to repeat the question.
The
We want
question
to
is,
know
the question
down to the
is,
minute. Yeah.
I asked a bunch of people for a client of his list. In this particular case, we had no one confirmed. He'd never done the email confirmation thing ever, okay? We gave them the opportunity to opt in. We gave them, I think, 3 emails over a week saying, hey, would you like to opt in? We're cool, whatever else. The question is, from when that campaign started, how long did it take for 20% of the people to opt in, of all the people who opted in, because not the whole list opted in during that time period, but of everyone who did, how long did it take? No, excuse me, I'm saying the question wrong, Greg. Why aren't you telling me better? 80%.
The dwell time, yeah.
No, I'm saying it right. 20% of the people we assume are going to be the most valuable, who opt in the fastest. So how long did it take 20% of the people? Because the people who opt in the latter 80%, I'm guessing might be the lower value people. Okay, so we have some guesses on board. Any other guesses? Because there is some combination of sweet smelling / mildly aphrodisiac, which isn't really a word, about shirt on the line for whoever gets this right.
Okay, we've got the low range. The fastest answer is 12 minutes right now, and the longest is 24 hours.
Okay, are we ready, Mr. Monkey Pod?
Sure. Last call, folks.
Katrina, lovely, delightfully specific answer. 3 hours, 1 minute. Okay, you're looking at a chart. I've simplified the data. I took these segments I talked about, minutes, hours, days, whatever else, and I cut it apart and I said, how long did it take to pass the post to get 20%? And the answer is 45 minutes. That within 45 minutes, 20% of the people who were going to confirm their email address during this week had done so. This may not mean that everyone else is not a good lead for a sale or something else, but this is what this particular data showed. Now, this is simplified to show the 80-20 rule, but let's go get the details here. Here's the details of all the little chunks. So within that first 15 minutes, we got 5% of people, and so on and so forth, all the way down here that very few people were after the first 24 hours. Really, only 7% of the people who confirmed within a week confirmed after the first day in this particular case. Now you want to go test it on your own database to see what's going to happen. Mark is the 5%. And yes, Steph, that's really good data. I love it. Here's the day data. So my day data shows that everyone confirms on a Thursday, some on a Friday, some on a Saturday, not so much other days. Who trusts this data? Raise your hand. Type in a number 1 if you think this data is awesome. Type in a number 2 if you think this data has something wrong with it.
Yeah, first couple responses are number 2. They're not convinced that this data is reliable.
I thought so too. So I'd love you to chat in. Why is this data bad? Okay, someone cheated. Mark, you guys, you're cheating. All 3 of you. You're awesome. So yeah, I sent it on a Thursday. And I didn't randomize my day of send. That to be authentic, to have good data, I should randomize day of send. And have really good data, I should randomize hour of send as well, because I have clients all over the world for this particular client. So more specifically, this is the truth. The day the offer was sent, 87% of the people who did opt in over the course of a week opted in, 13% on other days. So just be careful not to lie to yourself. This looks really compelling that everyone's awake on a Thursday. Totally not true. So now,
wait, who won the T-shirt?
Who won the T-shirt? We had. Let me go up. That's probably Brandon. Let's see. Let me go see what our guesses here. We had a couple people guess 1 to 2 hours. We had one at 12 minutes. We had Mark at 12 minutes, and then we had a couple at 1. We had Rob and Robin at 1 to 2 hours, and I feel like that's the closest. Though you might feel like Mark at 12 minutes. Mark is just excited.
So yeah, I see. So 1 hour would definitely be the closest, but they put a range, which I don't know how I feel.
But that's the bucket I gave him, was the 1 to 2 hour bucket, because I'm only tracking. If the system I put here and the one I was showing you guys earlier says, if it tells you within 2 hours, what that's really saying is, but not less than 1 hour, because I wasn't tracking an hour to an hour 15, an hour 15 to an hour 30. You could if you wanted to. I just didn't show that particular kind of thing.
Robin's giving me some grief saying, yeah, Greg, that was the bucket. All right, fine. T-shirts for Robin and Rob. If you guys can get me your sizes and mailing address, I will put those in the post.
And if you give them my size and my mailing address, I'll send you another shirt, slightly less branded. Okay, so let's give you some try you at home things. And we don't need to ask what kind of species of otter this is because it's a cute otter. So again, I just want you to walk away with one thing you're actually going to do here. And I also want to show you how plus this actually makes this all easier because it makes it so much easier. So I'll go through these briefly. A real simple one is what percentage of people, okay, this is exactly what I just showed you, right? This use case is really simple to do now. Try this at home. Number 2 is what does it do to dwell time? And one of you was asking about time zones before. So what about if you send an email in your time zone versus your contact's time zone? Do people buy faster or slower? And what if you segmented that out further for their country? Does that matter? I don't know. But now you know how to test that. Try this at home, number 3. Does it increase sales to start a sales campaign on the same day of the week as a contact first opted in? So to do this, you would need to know the win of a contact opting in, and then just start a sales campaign that starts on one of 7 days, depending on that. And then here's one more for you. Here's a bit of the fun one. So let's take a segment of a day. Let's compare 2 segments of days, 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. to midnight. Let's say the action is sending a sales email, or rather the trigger is sending a sales email. The action is clicking a sales email. And then we want to know about buying behaviors, what we're measuring it against. Knowing what you know now, you could do that inside Infusionsoft natively with no additional apps. So here's the koala. You guys pre-funked my memes here. I don't even know what you're up to there. So you can do all that inside Infusionsoft natively. And yeah, the last thing to check in here is, you know you can do this now. It doesn't mean you necessarily should because there's lots of other stuff to do. And the big goal is to move away from treating everyone the same and really go to treating different people differently. So that's the big idea. And here's where you can go to learn more. I'm going to put together a PDF, as in I haven't done it yet, which is going to have some quick tips on how to go make this thing happen easily for you inside Infusionsoft. And the opt-in page is at hypersegment.com. I built it and then Greg made it pretty because Greg is Greg and makes things pretty. So go to hypersegment.com. That's where you can go get the details on that. And then I'm going to go tell you about some more stuff to make hypersegmentation work for you. Now, Greg, I want to show a bit of plus this screens. You also have your actual data. Which do you guys want to get first? Do you want to go see the plus this features that make this all super duper easy? Or do you want to see actual results from the only man in the universe to actually implement hypersegmentation and make it happen? I asked the question wrong again, didn't I? Oh, crap.
I don't know that I'm the only man in the universe to implement this, but I definitely was the only person to implement it during your session. And Rob said both. Yeah. So we want to be respectful of your time, guys. So first of all, thanks to Brian. I will make sure that you guys get this link via email. So if you have to run, I know Brett was taken off here. That's cool. But if you are interested in seeing the plus this route or seeing what I've got set up here, I encourage you to stick around and we will definitely take our time and show you both. So Brian, I say we switch over to me just because I'm feeling like I haven't got to share very much. And then we'll circle back to do the plus this information that you've got queued up. Is that all right?
Sounds great. Done. Okay.
So let me share a window or a screen of mine. Cool. So just you guys should be able to see my screen, but if somebody could give me confirmation that you can see my Infusionsoft dashboard. A few people said that they can. Rob typed in the word C, which I'm sure is yes. Steph is saying, got it. Cool. All right, so here's my dashboard, and this is what I built during Brian's presentation at SuccessCon. It was from that, 15 or 20 minutes in when he showed the individual sequence that applied and removed tags, right, based on the day of the week or the time of the day. Here's what I've got set up. It's only tracking when purchases happen. So this is just a win. I'm not tracking dwell time for this particular one, but I set up to tag them, hey, if they buy in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, or overnight. And you can see it's 16, 11, 5, and 11, which may not mean a whole lot. You might track something and then figure out really it's a wash, right? But what surprised me about this is overnight was so high. That 11 people, just as many people bought in that overnight stretch as they did during the afternoon. Now, for days of the week, This is just about a month, maybe a month and a half of data here, but Sunday to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? My weekends, Saturday and Sunday, have combined for 5 total purchases, whereas Thursdays have 11. Wednesdays have 8, right? So there's definitely a little bit of information as far as when people buy. The tail end of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, are my three busiest days, with Monday being tied with Friday. So again, I'm not using this information in any meaningful way yet, but I wanted to set this tracking up because at some point this might become really valuable. Yeah, as Isis was saying, this is a really small sample size, but until you start tracking, you don't know what it's going to tell you. So let me just show you quickly the campaign behind this. And I think it probably looks just like what you guys were expecting. Purchase, if I spell it with an R, should give me the purchase reporting campaign. And there's a few different things that I've got set up in here. This is where I, trigger a reminder for myself to do a thank you card. But down here is the part that I set up for the hypersegmentation. So it triggers when any purchase happens. And if you don't process orders through Infusionsoft, you can switch this to be, an API call or a tag that's being applied or a note or a opportunity stage move. But the goal is to put them into a sequence where they get one of 4 tags. So if it's between 5 a.m. and noon, they get this tag, which should say morning. If it's between noon and 5:45, they get the afternoon tag. Between 6 p.m. and 11:45, they get the evening purchase, right? And then between 12 a.m. and 5 a.m., they get the overnight tag. And so they should get one of those tags. And anytime they get one of those tags, it will achieve this goal. So that's how we know that they're only going to get one, because as soon as it's applied, it pulls them out. And then they go into here, and same sort of thing happens with days of the week. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, etc. And as soon as they get one of those tags, it again extracts them. So what that allows us to do is just at the time of purchase, they're going to get one of those 4 tags and one of these 7 tags. And so everybody should end up in one of those buckets. Okay. So that was V1. That's what I built at SuccessCon during Brian's session. And again, I'm not using it yet. I'm just letting it collect data to see if that tells me anything long term. Okay. So the next level of this is I wanted to measure key milestones in my customer journey. So for example, Brian's been talking about dwell time, the distance between 2 events. So that could be really small and granular. Like I sent them the email at this time, what time did they click? Or if they clicked the email at this time, what time did they buy? But I was looking at it from more of like a high level standpoint, where in my customer's journey, when were they created? When did they get added to the Meet Greg sequence, which is my version of an indoctrination sequence? When did they get added to the nurture sequence? When did they get added to the second part of my nurture campaign, which is a separate campaign? When did they become a customer, and when did they become an OG member? And not everybody's going to do all of those things. But what I've set up is a set of zaps, right? I use Zapier pretty heavily, and there may be other ways to do this, but I set up zaps that will automatically push this information through and populate this cell when that item happens. So what I can effectively see is like a trail or a history of that customer's interactions as they hit and tipped each of these important milestones.
That's beautiful.
So thanks, man. Yeah, I actually built this last night as I was getting excited about this webinar, and I was like, I want to share this tomorrow, so I better get it live. So that's why I have these other sheets, because I had to import all this information and map it over. It'll populate automatically moving forward, but I had to do a little bit of lead work to get it set up historically. So what I've done is I built a campaign in Infusionsoft, and when a certain tag gets applied, whether it's my Meet Greg tag or my Nurture tag or my customer tag, it also triggers off a zap, right? And that it just basically sends an HTTP post, which would run the corresponding zap here in Infusionsoft, and that zap looks up the customer from this spreadsheet based on ID, and then it puts in the date and time that this zap ran into the corresponding cell. So it finds the right customer, and then it updates the customer column with the date that this happened. Now, I'm not this isn't a click step training. I'm not expecting you guys to like quickly, build the exact same thing. I'm just trying to plant a seed as to what's possible and the different ways in which Brian's content here can be applied. Again, this whole concept hasn't really done anything for me yet. But the key is, you don't know what valuable lessons are there until you start listening for them. And so I wanted to get this built out as soon as possible with the hopes that it'll reveal some really meaningful data that I can use to make more informed decisions about where my ad spend goes or, to whom I interact with or how I allocate my time. Whew. So, Brian, I just passed the controls back to you. If you want to flip on your screen, we could talk about the plus this version of this and how you use plus this to make it even more elegant. In the meantime, if any of you guys have questions about what I just shared or are interested in the tactics that I used or why I built it a certain way, feel free to add those to the chat, and I'll make sure that we have a little Q&A time at the end here. Oh, we got a few people taking off. Thank you guys for joining. Isis, if you got to run, appreciate your time. I hope you found it valuable. If you guys, there's about 15, 16 of you who are still hanging out. If you're digging this, feel free to help us shape this webinar. If you have questions or specific scenarios or areas where you think this falls down, I would love you guys to pose those, and Brian and I are yours to access. We'll be happy to see if we can address it.
Right on. So let me hop over into plus this here. Can you see my screen okay? It should say calculate time between events.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Right on. So I showed you the manual way of measuring these things because I want you to be able to see how to do it by hand. Plus this makes it so much easier. And disclaimer, I'm definitely a Plus This certified partner and writing a book on Plus This because I'm their biggest fanboy. That said, here is a calculate time between events, which if you squint, looks like dwell time. And instead of having that big long campaign, you can just choose your trigger right here and then choose your action right here and then say, where would you like to put the result? And it can measure it in terms of time. And so that's pretty cool. And it can store it as all this. And they actually added on minutes when I did this webinar for Plus This, because of the dwell time functionality. So they crafted the software to run dwell time better. So you could store the result in minutes of this first event being, let's say, a date a tag was applied, and that tag would be when you started your sales campaign. And then the latest purchase would be whenever they buy that thing, unless they bought a thing between when you started your sales campaign and they bought the thing inside that campaign. Or you could have a particular tag for the purchase tag for that individual thing. So I know stuff they added minutes. It was amazing. They added it for us to do this tech with. It's pretty cool. So now dwell time just got way easier. Now let's talk about when. Date calculator, what's the date? It tells you when a thing happened. They also added, I think they added minutes for us here as well. Maybe it was hours over here, but they added tech to this side as well. So for this one, we can look at the date of a whole bunch of different things. When the feature is used, just means measure the moment that something starts. So you might use this. You send out that confirmation email, and then once they confirm their email address, when that tag gets applied, we're going to go fire this feature to do the date the feature was used. Or we could look at when a particular tag was applied, like a confirmed email address thing. To make this the most similar to what you already saw in Infusionsoft, the date when the feature is used would be most appropriate. Greg is raising his hand, Brian.
I was. Thank you, Steph.
Actually, I guess I should break this off. Man, you guys are amazing. You're so high-tech. I'm like in a straw hat over here.
What I'm wondering here is, this is sweet, and I'm a Plus This fan as well. I used Zapier just because that's the way I thought about it, but I can see. My plan is to use the Google Sheets to calculate the time between the two dates and do it that way. The only drawback I see here, and I'm hoping you'll correct me, is that it requires a custom field to store that value in once it's done its math. Is that right?
Yeah, so it needs to have somewhere to put it. And so if you wanted to do a bazillion different tags or a bazillion different features being measured, this would take a lot of space.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, if you want to, if for each thing you want to measure the time between, whether it's requested the ebook and downloaded the ebook, or signed up for the webinar and signed up for the membership, or whatever those things are, you need a place to put that value. And for the plus this feature, the only option for storing that information is back to a custom field. Is that right?
Yes. Now you could hack it and make it every so often grab data from those custom fields and apply tags to decision diamonds, but that's way more work than setting it up manually once, then not touching it again ever. So, yeah, that's a very valid criticism.
Oh, I mean, valid point. It's still applicable, but depending on the way you're going to use this, I could see that being a limitation people run up against.
It's definitely a limitation. When tracking is simple enough that just doing it natively, like you were seeing, is pretty simple. I'm really excited about so you could use it. I wanted to make the point that it could be used, and I think it's cool. If you do it the way I showed it to you earlier, then it doesn't break ever. And your cost is you have a little bit of bad data while you're doing it. If you add in 10,000 people and they all get that tag saying, I confirmed, then whatever. Whereas right here, you could just say, populate this field that says, how long did it take them to confirm, which you really only need to know once. And then have that be just populated there, and then use that in comparison to the other data.
So this is good. I'm glad we're talking about this. I don't know if Mark Penny is still hanging out. He was the one who commented earlier about the user time zone with the tags. And here's why this is so important, right? If you have your customers' time zones on the contact record, then the dwell time stuff and the win time should work fine, because it's all in their local time zone when those actions and timers run. But if you're using third-party tools to collect leads, oftentimes those contacts are added to Infusionsoft without the contact time zone being captured, right? Like a purchase, if you're using Infusionsoft order forms, it's going to have their time zone. That's why I feel like I can use it confidently. But if you're using Gravity forms or Thrive, opt-ins, then you're going to run into some issues where you don't have the customer's time zone on. But if you use something like the Zapier route that I have set up, it's not using the customer's time zone. It's using the time that event took place. So it doesn't matter where they are in the world. If you're measuring the time between two benchmarks, their time zone is irrelevant. That dwell time is still going to be able to be accurately captured, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the only place it would potentially mess up your data is if you're trying to figure out, are people buying during the morning, and what your morning is versus where they are, that's where I could see it getting a little messy.
Yeah. So you've seen a bunch of stuff now. You've had a bazillion ideas. With all the folks still here, I'd love to hear, what is the one thing that's most interesting that you're actually going to go do? All the stuff you covered.
And where do you see this fitting in your business, right? For me, the logical step was I want to know when my people are buying so that I can see if there's a trend and then trace that back to capitalize on that trend. But I'd love to hear, as you guys absorb this information, the way you translate it into your own business or your own model. So
I'm a coaching business. And so for me, it's probably more of the kind of lead magnets I develop. How long does it take a person to go and consume the lead magnet or download the lead magnet? And how can I speed that up? Because that probably means they'll want more. In my case, I might have an email go out, and eventually there'll be more when you go to hypersegmentation.com. Email goes out, says, hey, download the PDF. And you click to download, and it takes you to a page to download it where I have a video of me saying, by the way, I'm a business coach, an Infusionsoft coach, go hire me. So knowing if I can shorten that dwell time, my revenue probably goes up. Whereas I don't sell products, so knowing the exact product thing, probably not so much. Okay, so we have... Steph says, see how something like my clients should be using because they spend thousands on ads. Yeah, for the consultants out there, sounds smart automatically by saying, I was wondering if you should start hypersegmenting. And they'll say, what's that? And you'll say, well, what I like to do. And then just quote Greg or me or whatever. Okay, then you'll sound smarter and it'll be cool.
Yeah, so I think that's probably one of the more obvious scenarios is like, use this to inform your ad spend. But there's, that can show up in a few different ways. It's not just like where you put your money, but it's where you put your effort. And like, if you know that your leads who come through a specific channel buy more quickly, then maybe you can justify a higher cost per lead, right? Jamie's saying, Go ahead.
You can even measure different lead sources with saying that of your 10 lead sources going into this funnel, these lead sources over here, their dwell time tends to be 10 times as much as your lead source that has the best return on ad spend. Therefore, you probably ought to reduce your ad buy. I used to have a client in the stock market education industry, and we spent a lot of money on ads. And so trying to understand who are the best and what to route them to. And even you buy this traffic, which of your campaigns ought you to send them to? What's the dwell time to first purchase in this campaign or that campaign? And let that inform how you funnel your people through all your various funnels.
You know what? So Jamie just said that you could do it for processing time, like for document approval.
Yeah.
Which makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this is how she intended it, but the way I heard that was like for internal steps, right? If you have something that like needs to be approved, like, and you have a staff member who's like responsible for replying to something or signing off on something, that would be a really good way to measure like not just your customers' response time, but like to keep tabs on like your team and how reactive they are to customer inquiries and stuff.
If you can put in a spreadsheet, you can build graphs, and then you can check how your staff is doing. And you could even, if you want to be one of these avant-garde new age Web 2.0 people, you can make a publicly available spreadsheet showing how long it takes from any task going into task management tool and you responding to it. Time to first response, you can make that publicly available. Not that you should, but you could.
Awesome. Don has a caveat here. Be careful that you adjust it when you start to non-randomize the initial info source. Because if you start to like lean into one of these trends you establish, it's also going to further affect the way you're collecting that data. Great point. Cool. Well, hey, Brian, before I forget, you mentioned that you do business coaching and consulting. Do you want to talk about Redbeard and tell everyone what it is that you do and how you serve Infusionsoft users?
I'll time the hand gesture just right this time. Besides having a beard, I also have done Infusionsoft implementation for years. This is my 7th year in business doing Infusionsoft implementation kind of stuff. And now I'm moving from building stuff all the time to coaching people on building stuff all the time. And so I'm focused on companies that are working towards getting up to $500,000 in revenue that use Infusionsoft. And my package is talk to me every other week. I help you focus and orient yourself. I find that all of us are too smart, where we think about 10 things we could do, and then we do 8 of them to half completion and 1 to 10% completion. And then we wonder why that thing didn't get done 3 years ago. All of us do it. No need for shame. Just a little bit of self-deprecating humor because everyone does it, including me.
Of course.
And so focusing is what we need. We don't need more ideas exactly. We need focus. And so my package is $500, talk every other week. If that's interesting, my email address, Brian's going to put that in there, brian@redbeardconsulting.com, or you can get on my calendar at redbeardconsulting.com/MEET. And I'm totally focused on that right now. So if you want someone to go and help you focus while also making you laugh, that's me. And I've made probably more mistakes than most of you in Infusionsoft because I got involved right before Campaign Builder came out. So I claim to be dumber in my experience. And if I can prevent you having the dumb, then you're going to make more money. So that's my pitch.
That's it, man. I'm
have the dumb. Redbeard says.
I'm kind of the same way, where I can justify making these mistakes because it will allow me to prevent other people from making them in the future. So we're in the same boat. Hey, man, thanks for your time. I've got a ton of respect for what you're doing. I'm really, really pleased to share this information, and I hope everyone found it valuable today. Thank you guys for calling in, for joining, spending time with us, and for your questions and responses, and for tolerating Brian's memes.
You're so sweet. Really, really.
All right. See you guys. Take care.